Picture this. It is a Tuesday evening. You are standing in your kitchen, tired after a long day, and you are about to make dinner. You open the fridge, reach for the milk, and right before you pour it into the pan, you flip the carton over and glance at the bottom. And there it is, that little printed date, and it says yesterday. Your hand freezes. You bring the carton up to your nose. It smells completely fine. You tilt it slightly. The texture looks perfectly normal. But that date, that small black stamped number, it has already done its job. Without a single word, it has planted a seed of doubt so powerful that you are now seriously considering throwing away a full carton of milk that smells, looks, and almost certainly tastes absolutely perfect. You hesitate for a few more seconds, then walk to the bin and pour it down the drain. Every year across the United States alone, households throw away approximately $80 billion worth of food. A significant portion of that food is not spoiled. It is not dangerous. It has not gone bad. It simply passed a date printed on a label. A date that, in most cases, was never actually about your safety in the first place. Welcome to Normal Things, Crazy Origins. Today, we are uncovering what expiration dates really mean, where they actually came from, and why the system that is supposed to protect you might be the single biggest driver of food waste in the modern world. To understand the date on your food, we have to go back to a time when there were no dates at all. For the vast majority of human history, people did not need a label to tell them whether food was safe. They used the oldest and most reliable technology ever developed by the human body, their senses. Milk that was turning would smell sour. Meat going bad would change color, develop a slick texture, and produce an unmistakable odor that triggered an immediate biological warning signal. Bread going stale would harden. Cheese would develop visible mold. People who ignored these signals got sick. People who respected them survived. This system worked for thousands of years across every civilization on Earth, from ancient Egypt to medieval Europe to pre-industrial America. It was imperfect, certainly, but it was grounded in direct, sensory reality. The collapse of this system began in the 20th century, and it happened for a very specific reason. Food stopped being local. The Industrial Revolution and the rise of mass production meant that food was no longer made by your neighbor, sold at the market 3 streets away, consumed within days. It was now manufactured in enormous facilities, hundreds or thousands of miles from the consumer, packaged, loaded onto trucks, shipped to distribution centers, transferred to regional warehouses, delivered to grocery stores, placed on shelves, and then purchased by strangers who had no relationship whatsoever with the person who made it. In that long, anonymous supply chain, the direct relationship between producer and consumer was completely severed. The sensory knowledge that a farmer's wife used to evaluate her own pantry could not travel with the product. Manufacturers needed a surrogate. They needed something printed on the package that would communicate, in a fraction of a second, some signal about the quality or safety of what was inside, and so the date stamp was born. But here is the critical detail that almost nobody knows, and it is the detail that changes everything. In the United States, there is no single federal law that requires expiration dates on food. None. With one exception, infant formula, the federal government does not mandate that food manufacturers print any date on their products at all. The dates that appear on virtually every package of food in your refrigerator and pantry are applied voluntarily by the manufacturer, according to their own internal standards, their own testing protocols, and their own business interests. And this is where the story becomes genuinely surprising, because those interests do not always align perfectly with yours. There are several different types of date labels in use, and they mean radically different things, but they are presented in ways that look almost identical to the average consumer standing in the grocery aisle. The first is the sell-by date. This date is not for you at all. It is a communication from the manufacturer to the retailer. It tells the store how long to display the product on the shelf to ensure it is sold while still at peak freshness. A product with a sell-by date of today is not unsafe to eat today. It is simply at the point where the store should rotate it off the shelf. Most food products remain perfectly safe and high quality for days or even weeks past their sell-by date, depending on how they have been stored. The second type is the best by or best before date. This is a quality indicator, not a safety indicator. It is the manufacturer's estimate of when the product will begin to decline in peak flavor, texture, or appearance. After this date, your crackers might be slightly less crispy. Your yogurt might taste marginally less fresh. Your breakfast cereal might lose a little of its crunch. None of these changes make the food dangerous. They simply mean the product is no longer performing at the level the manufacturer intended when they designed it. The third type, the use-by date, is the one that comes closest to a genuine safety signal. This date is typically applied to highly perishable products, fresh raw meat, fresh poultry, certain dairy products where bacterial growth genuinely does accelerate after a specific point. This is the date you should take seriously. This is the date that was actually designed with your health in mind. The problem is that supermarkets, manufacturers, and food packaging present all three of these fundamentally different types of dates in virtually the same visual format, the same small black font, the same placement on the bottom of the package, the same phrasing, expired. And in the consumer's mind, all three have collapsed into a single, simple, terrifying message: danger. This conflation has been studied extensively by food scientists and public health researchers. A landmark 2013 report by the Natural Resources Defense Council and Harvard Law School estimated that the confusion surrounding date labels is one of the primary drivers of the extraordinary food waste crisis in America and across the developed world. People are not throwing away spoiled food. They are throwing away food that passed an administrative deadline. Now, here is the part that feels almost counterintuitive when you first encounter it. Because manufacturers are not required to use standardized testing to set these dates, and because the legal and reputational risk of a customer getting sick from a product is enormous, companies have a very strong structural incentive to set their dates conservatively. Very conservatively. A food scientist working for a manufacturer who is choosing between printing a best buy date of 30 days or 45 days from production will almost always choose 30 days. The product almost certainly remains perfectly good until day 45. But the downside risk of one customer eating the product on day 44 and getting sick even from an unrelated cause and then pointing to the label that said it was fine to eat creates a liability exposure that no company wants to accept. The result is that printed dates are systematically shorter than the actual safe or quality window of the food they describe. This is not a conspiracy. It is just basic corporate risk management. But the consequence, multiplied across billions of packages sold every year, is billions of dollars worth of food destroyed for no rational reason. Consider the extraordinary durability of some common foods. Honey sealed in a jar has essentially no expiration date. Archaeologists have found honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that was still chemically edible after 3,000 years. Pure white sugar in a sealed container can last indefinitely. Hard liquor does not spoil. Commercially canned goods are routinely tested to remain safe and nutritionally intact for years, sometimes decades past their printed dates. Dry pasta sealed in its original packaging can last 2 to 5 years past the date on the box with no meaningful loss of nutritional value. White rice stored properly can be edible for 25 to 30 years. These are not edge cases. They are ordinary staples that fill ordinary pantries, and they are thrown away every single day by ordinary people who glanced at a number and made a decision based on a system they were never properly taught to understand. The tragedy deepens when you consider the environmental dimension. Food that is grown, harvested, processed, packaged, refrigerated, transported, stocked, purchased, refrigerated again, and then thrown away. Uneaten represents a colossal waste of every resource that went into producing it. Water, fuel, land, labor, electricity, all of it invested in food that ends up in a landfill because of a date printed by a manufacturer to protect their own quality reputation, not your safety. In landfills, rotting food produces methane, a greenhouse gas significantly more potent than carbon dioxide. The food waste problem, driven in part by date label confusion, is not just an economic issue. It is a serious environmental and ethical one. So what should you actually do the next time you are standing in your kitchen holding something that has passed its printed date? The answer is the same answer your great-grandmother would have given you without hesitation. Use your senses. Smell it, look at it, check the texture. If fresh chicken smells off, do not eat it regardless of what the label says. If a jar of jam sealed 6 months ago smells fine, looks fine, and has no visible mold, it is almost certainly fine to eat, regardless of what the label says. Your senses evolved over millions of years specifically to protect you from spoiled food. A printed date was invented 60 years ago to protect a manufacturer from a lawsuit. Trust the older technology. So the next time you are standing in your kitchen, exhausted, holding that carton of milk, and you see that the date says yesterday, smell it first. Really smell it. Because that date on the label is not a switch that flips food from safe to dangerous at midnight. It is a manufacturer's conservative estimate, printed to protect their brand, regulated by almost nobody, and misunderstood by nearly everyone. The milk is almost certainly fine. And now you know exactly why. If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden truth behind the labels in your refrigerator, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who throws food away the moment it hits the date. and subscribe to Normal Things, Crazy Origins for more stories about the everyday world that are nothing like what you were told. Because sometimes the most misleading thing in your kitchen is not the food, it is the label on the outside. Thanks.